have a confession to make.
Do tell.
Eric. It's been eating at me for a while now. I'm not the kind of guy who's gonna come out and say, "Oh, I was wrong," and here's why. But I figured, starting this podcast, turning over a new leaf. Can't let the Aries in me rule my life all the time.
An opportunity to better yourself.
Exactly.
Work on you.
Work on me.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to work on.
Yeah.
And in this
target rich environment.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
So last week we were talking about the Lord of the Rings show.
Yes.
And after listening to the podcast a couple times, maybe like 17 times,
right,
I finally realized, okay, I'm wrong in something, and I need to admit it. And
it's the first stage in recovery.
Yes, exactly.
Admit that you have a problem.
In getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you asked a question. Will the show lead up to the forging of the Rings of Power?
Yes.
And I was very adamant in saying, absolutely not. You're an idiot for asking.
You were, and I.
So first off, let me apologize to you.
Thank you.
It's not. It's not necessarily wrong. I'm not necessarily wrong.
Right.
We don't actually know if it will. However, after realizing how wrong I could be down the road, I want to get in front of this.
Sure.
Sure. Be proactive.
Because I am going to throw it back in your face.
100%
yes.
expect you to.
When season 3 or season 2 comes around, after their $1.5 trillion into this series,
exactly. Yep.
I'll be like, hey.
And I'm sitting there watching them forge the rings, and I'm just going to stoop lower in my chair, and I'm just going to say, oh, I was wrong. I will buy you a couple of cheap replicas of the Ring of Power. I should be buying you cheap replicas.
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, so the show absolutely could lead up to that because the show is going to take place in the first age. So any time between year 0 and year 1000, that's the first age. Years 1001 to 2000 is the second age. The Rings of Power were forged around the year 1500. The One Ring to rule them all was forged around 1634.
Yes.
After that, Sauron and his armies helped defeat the land of Numenor, which then led to the descent of man, basically, and the descent of the royal family of Aragorn's family.
Right.
So, anyway, we don't know if this show is going to take place in year 998 and then lead up to the forging of the rings or what, but like I said, I'm working on myself. I'm being proactive. And you know what? I could be wrong down the line. What kind of man am I?
You're growing. And you know what?
Thank you.
I promised myself I wouldn't cry, but growing up right before my eyes.
Whatever. You cried last week.
I did. Like a baby.
Hello and welcome back to the Nerd Rundown podcast, where we cover the latest in the nerd world of movies, TV, comics, games, and more. We appreciate you joining us today, and if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at the Nerd Rundown. Find us on YouTube at the Nerd Rundown. And then you can also listen to our podcast on places like Spotify, Google, Apple, Player FM, Amazon Music, Deezer, and Buzzsprout. We have an awesome show for you today where we're going to cover topics like the new Shang-Chi trailer, MCU casting news, multiple movie production updates, and then get to some great fan questions. We're also going to release a bonus episode where we'll review the entire season 1 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Gonna be good. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to talk more about that. Got some great stuff. Gonna answer some questions. Answer some unanswered questions, show how it sets up the rest of Phase 4 and into Phase 5 and ties into other Marvel projects, and then just overall give a good review of this awesome show.
Yeah. So let's get started with the rundown.
Yeah, but first, the rundown. on Monday, Marvel Studios released the new trailer. This is our first look at their movie. Shang-Chi is how it's pronounced.
Okay.
Most people are pronouncing it Shang-Chi.
Yes.
So either way you pronounce it, it doesn't matter because it looks amazing.
Yes.
So it's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, starring Simu Liu, Awkwafina, who you may know from Raya and the Last Dragon.
Yeah, she was great in that.
Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes. Yep.
Michelle Yeoh, you definitely have heard of her name 100 times before. She's been in some great Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yep. She's for those Star Trek nerds on there. She was in Discovery, and we'll see kind of going forward if she'll still be in Discovery. So
she was in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yep. Yeah, she was great in that. So
she was
Pierce Brosnan. She was one of the highlights of the late stage
the descent of Brosnan's Brawn.
Yes,
but it also is starring Tony Chiu Wai Luang. Sorry if I butchered that name, but he's playing the main villain in the show. He's actually playing Shang-Chi's father, and his name in the movie is Wenwu, but his moniker that he goes by is the Mandarin.
Oh, okay.
Which may be tingling some people's spidey senses.
Yes.
As the Mandarin has been in the MCU before.
Correct.
Back in 2013, Iron Man 3 was released. We had a double Mandarin with Sir Ben Kingsley playing a mock Mandarin, and then
wonderful performance.
Very funny. Very chilling in the beginning of that.
Very
movie.
much so, yeah.
Yeah. And then they did a 180 on it, and Aldrich Killian's character, played by Guy Pearce, he called himself the Mandarin.
Right.
And then later, either that year or a year later, Marvel released a one-shot.
Yes.
Which I miss. I miss these one-shots. I wish they'd go back to releasing these. But Marvel used to do these short 5-minute videos. They called them Marvel one-shots. It showed one of my favorite villains, Justin Hammer, from Iron Man 2.
Yes.
He was in prison, and he was in prison with Trevor Slattery, and it just ended up being that the real Mandarin sent in an assassin was like, "Hey, don't ever be the Mandarin ever again, or else you'll die." Kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So, Sam Rockwell.
Who is
amazing. So it was one of my favorite actors.
He's really great.
He's in anything he does.
Yes.
But that's who Justin Hammer is.
Did you ever watch Moon?
Moon's so
Moon's
good.
A great movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll watch anything with Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, he's really great.
So anyway, the Mandarin, there was a big twist. The fans didn't like it, and this is Marvel's chance to redeem themselves with the Mandarin, because he's a big character in the comics. He's one of Iron Man's biggest, if not Iron Man's biggest foe.
Right.
And it's a bit of a problematic character with a lot of Asian stereotypes, and I can understand them wanting to be cautious with it back in 2013.
Sure.
Well, the world's different now, and we're starting to see better representation of African Americans, Asians, just different ethnicities in movies, and so this is a good time.
Yeah,
it's a very good time to release this movie, and to include the Mandarin. And so, I don't know a whole lot about what the plot is of the movie.
Yes.
What I do know is the character of Shang-Chi. In the 1970s, there was a big kung fu craze.
Yeah, Bruce Lee.
Led by Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Yep.
And Marvel wanted to capitalize off that. They created Shang-Chi and modeled him after Bruce Lee, and he's the best martial artist in the MCU.
Okay.
He's almost unbeatable in a one-on-one combat.
Okay.
He has certain powers in the comics. I don't think that they will use these powers in this movie. Who knows?
Sure.
But it's got a very mystical aspect to the movie, so I wouldn't be surprised. But he can duplicate himself in a fight.
Oh, interesting.
So he can punch you in the face a lot.
Sure.
From multiple angles.
Yes.
But really, it's also
which, speaking from experience, is never good. So
I think I'm not a masochist. I'm not gonna want to be punched in the face over and over again. So
so I can just say I've been punched in the face.
One too many times.
Once was enough.
Once was enough.
I'm good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I thought the trailer looked amazing. I'm
so good.
I
was bopping along to that song too. I was just
music was great, and to watch this stuff, to watch the trailers, things like that. You get a certain vibe. They have a certain vibe to them. I love kung fu movies. I absolutely love kung fu movies. Growing up in the 90s and stuff like that, 80s and 90s, you had a lot of the blood sport. You have the Jean-Claude Van Damme type stuff. Jackie Chan stuff. I mean, just
and you know what? I actually feel like they're paying homage to a lot of these movies in this movie. For one, Madripoor. We'll revisit Madripoor in this movie.
Yes,
which you've seen from the Falcon.
Yep,
and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, they introduced that setting.
There's an event every year in Madripoor called Bloodsport.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it looks like there's a fight that's taking place in Madripoor that would be Bloodsport.
Right.
Do you have a lot of your kind of goofy Jackie Chan-ness to it?
Yes.
And so. I'm sure that's one thing Marvel does is they put in kind of Easter eggs and homages to other things and the genres and stuff like that. And Simu Liu looks the part for sure.
Yes.
He looks like he can do this, and there's been some test footage that's been released of him doing kung fu, and the guy is phenomenal.
Yeah. No, he looked great.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's for sure he's trained himself up and done what he needed to do to get it so that you buy that he's legit.
Yep.
And he looks legit. He really does.
Oh, he looks very legit.
Which is actually something I want to talk about in the Falcon Winter Soldier review later on. Is one of the bits that I kind of struggled with in the series was, the fighting skill level of certain people.
We'll
get into that. So he looks awesome.
Yeah.
The setup, where his dad's kind of narrating over ahead of it, and he's saying, "Hey, I gave you the time, I gave you the decade to go do what you wanted to do, and it looks like he's not really going anywhere in his life, and then his dad's come back to him and been like, "Hey, you owe me," and so I'm jazzed. I really am jazzed.
So a little context here in the comics, Shang-Chi's father is not the Mandarin.
Okay.
It is a guy that his name was Fu Manchu, so you can understand why they don't want to include that.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
In the comics, his father raises him, and he thinks the world of his father, and his father asks him to do a task, and he goes and kills a guy for his father.
Okay.
And he realizes it's his father that's evil, and the guy was good, and so that you could see that's playing out a little bit in this movie.
Sure.
And the Mandarin sends his goons to go bring him back. And,
yes. Yeah.
The guy who played Ivan Drago's son in Creed 2 is playing Razor Fists.
Yeah.
The guy he's got like a knife for a hand.
Nice.
Which I don't know how he goes to the bathroom, but I don't want to see it.
Sure.
Just tell me, don't show me.
It's like the 3 seashell thing, from Demolition Man, where I'm like, how's that work?
Just tell me, don't show me. But
it's
we'll see. We'll see him be another badass in the movie. And then the last part of this, and we'll move on, is the 10 rings. So in the comics, they are actual rings of power. They're alien technology, and they can help him. They give him 10 different kinds of powers: water manipulation, air manipulation, power blasting, stuff like that.
Okay.
They change it up a bit in the movie, and they're bracelets.
Okay.
Which I'm cool with because they already had somewhat of Knuckle.
The gauntlet.
Yep. So
from Endgame.
Mm-hmm. So I like the change up there, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the 10 rings.
Okay. Yeah. No, it looks good.
Yeah.
I really do.
Very, very excited for it.
Yep.
So it releases September 3rd of this year. Go see it. One last bit.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't know this was a Marvel movie, I wouldn't have known this was a Marvel movie, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
The look of it, the cinematography looks fantastic. It looks nothing like a Marvel movie, but knowing that it is a Marvel movie only boosts it.
Yeah, no, I thought it looked really, really great. So I'm really looking forward to it. So
Cool.
I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah. All right, staying within the MCU, we have some MCU casting news. I'll do the Russell Crowe thing first because I think the other piece is a bigger piece. But
Sure.
Russell Crowe this week confirmed his involvement in Thor 4 for Love and Thunder, which is I'm just so excited for this movie. He confirmed his role as Zeus in the movie, which is crazy good.
Yeah.
Crazy awesome because now that's confirming the Greek gods in the Marvel universe. So we'll at some point hopefully get Hercules, who's an awesome Avenger at times.
Yeah.
And then Zeus. So, and I always think of Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Zeus, yes.
Why are you calling me Zeus?
Yeah, right. Jesus.
Oh, he says, why you call me Jesus?
Why you call me Jesus?
Do I look Puerto Rican to you?
Yeah, right.
My name is Zeus.
Yeah.
Like father of Apollo.
Like I will shove a lightning bolt.
I will shove a lightning bolt.
Yeah, that's
so,
great. That's good stuff.
Cannot hear Zeus without hearing Sam Jackson say those lines.
Yes.
So why do you keep calling me Jesus?
Jesus, yes. That was a great line.
So I don't really have much more to say about this other than that's what it confirms.
Yeah.
And it showing that we should get Hercules at some point, which is great.
Yeah.
Any Russell Crowe involvement in a Marvel movie is awesome.
Yes.
And that's it. So
yeah.
Thoughts on it?
Well, my only commentary is that I hope we get more of a gladiator Russell Crowe Zeus than Jor-El Zeus character. I'm just saying one guy looks a little bit more swollen than
one looks like a Greek god and
right.
one doesn't.
One of
is
them
what
looks
you're
like,
saying?
So I'm hoping we get for his
looking at the picture of him with the Zeus beard.
Yeah.
He looks more like Anthony Hopkins
yeah.
in Thor 1 than anything.
Yeah. I mean the guy's it's not like he's a young guy or anything, but I'm hoping I mean he's not all that old. He's only 57, you know? I mean, look at Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is on another level. Yeah.
And, Tom Cruise taps into the power of Scientology.
Yeah,
that's
probably true. That's probably true. So
let him be.
Yeah, I guess Tom Cruise just in his own thing, but I just am hoping that we get more of a fit, a tighter Russell Crowe. So
that's the thing about Taika Waititi, the director of the movie of that and of course Thor Ragnarok. But
yeah.
He's gonna make it work. I have full faith in him.
He'll probably play off of it. It could be going back to again my favorite my costume a couple of years ago, the Fat Thor costume. Maybe we'll
looking forward.
Maybe we'll get
to
that.
Your Fat Zeus.
Yes, maybe if my Fat Zeus is next. So maybe Russell Crowe's helping me out here.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Who knows? Maybe Taika just knows exactly what the people want.
God, he's so great. He's so funny. He's so funny. Yep.
I'll never forget he did a little video for Thor Ragnarok, and it starts out with, "Hello, I'm Taika Waititi, and this is Thor Ragnarok." And the whole video, he's just being amazing, and I could watch that video all day long. Oh, and it's so funny.
And he plays the voice
Korg.
of that Korg. And he's just
Korg is my favorite character in Thor Ragnarok.
So we were gonna have a revolution, but I didn't print enough flyers.
My mother's new boyfriend. Hello, Doug. Hello, new Doug.
New Doug. You remind me of Doug.
Made of rocks. Doesn't really matter unless you're playing rock, paper, scissors. Or he's like a little rock, paper, scissors humor there.
He's great. He reminds me of another New Zealand guy who does he's from the Yes Man movie. Gosh, what's his name?
While you look that up, I'm going to start talking about the other piece of news because this is really exciting.
Yep.
So back in December, Disney Investor Day, the Marvel Cinematic Universe it was announced that that's expanding in multiple ways along with movies. They are releasing the TV shows. We've already seen now 2 of the TV shows.
Yep.
One of the TV shows that was announced is called Secret Invasion.
Yes.
And this is so exciting. It's headlined by Nick Fury, Sam Jackson.
Yes.
A couple Sam Jackson references.
Yes.
So Sam Jackson is Nick Fury, and then Ben Mendelsohn as the Skrull Talos, who we met in Captain Marvel.
Correct. Yes.
So with that, them headlining it, that's already exciting. And the Secret Invasion storyline in the comics is a top 10 for me.
Yeah, because I wanted to. I definitely want you to kind of expand on that, so we kind of get an idea of where we're headed for that one. So,
little backstory on it.
Rhys Darby is who I was thinking of. He's a New Zealand actor as well. He was in Yes Man. If you ever watched Flight of the Conchords, he was on that. He did one of my absolute favorite episodes of the X-Files when they did a short like 6 or 7, like season 11 or something like that they did of the X-Files, and he played a character on that. And then he also is in the new Jumanji movies. He plays the kind of the narrator inside the video game that they're in. He plays like kind of the character that moves them around the place. Anyhow, he's really funny guy. So, but yeah, no, getting back to Secret Invasion, I am super excited for this on paper, but I just from the casting news, I am super excited about it. But I want to know.
So let me give a little background on what Secret Invasion is.
Right. Because we're rolling back to the Skrulls, which is from Captain Marvel. That was the Captain Marvel series. Or the Captain Marvel movie is when we really got to see more of those characters, I guess, or more of that race of aliens, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, so it's after the Kree Skrull War. The Earth is kind of in a who do we trust type scenario because Skrulls can shapeshift and the Illuminati wants to confront the Skrulls, and they attack the Skrull Empire, and it's really cool because it's one of those just who do you trust, who might be a Skrull kind of thing, and it sets up a lot of distrust between characters and a lot of mystery to it. So, there's a lot of the big players becomes, Skrulls. So you get to see certain characters act out of character that they wouldn't, I'm pretty sure it was Captain America was a Skrull at some point. So really cool. I'm really excited to see how they start planning it out. It's already gotten a couple end credit scenes to help set it up. And in the Far From Home, you had Nick Fury on the Skrull ship.
Skrull ship, yes, enjoying
in
the beach.
In space, somewhere in space.
Yes.
And then at the end, one of the end credit scenes at the end of WandaVision, you had Monica Rambeau talk to a Skrull.
Yes, a recently empowered Monica Rambeau.
Yep.
If you
so
will.
that might be more for Captain Marvel too, but also with it being knowing Secret Invasion is coming up, that is could also help set that up.
Right.
Now, the news that's come out this week for the show is 2 big casting news for this.
Yeah.
First one, Olivia Colman has been cast. And if you know Olivia Colman, or if you're wondering who that is, she is in one of my favorite all-time shows, Broadchurch.
Okay.
She's Milla.
Yeah.
Have you seen Broadchurch?
I have not watched it.
Oh, my gosh. Watch it immediately.
Yep.
But she also plays Queen Elizabeth in The Crown.
Yeah, and she's brilliant in that. I have seen that.
I've watched like 2 episodes of it.
Yeah.
In the first season. So I haven't got to the part where she's in it yet.
Oh, no, she's great.
But I've heard, I think she's won back-to-back Emmys for it, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And I don't know if you saw her like acceptance speech for, I think she won an Oscar for something that she was in a couple of years ago for Best Supporting Actress in something. And her acceptance speech was hilarious. Like, I mean, she was just really funny, which is interesting because when you see her in The Crown, she is super straight.
Well, she's funny in Broadchurch.
Okay.
She's incredible on that show.
Yeah.
And there's a big twist, not obviously, but there's a big twist in there that you should just watch it because it's really good.
Yeah. We'll have to watch it.
Okay. And then, so she's cast. We don't know who she's playing, but exciting to see a big-time talent like that come to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
For sure. Yep.
And then Daenerys Targaryen herself, Emilia Clarke, has been also cast. And again, we don't know whom she might be playing, but holy cow, that's two. I mean, already on top of Ben Mendelsohn, one of my all-time favorite actors.
Who's, really, really great.
And of course, the power of Sam Jackson. So those four names already cast in this. Holy cow, we're getting a hell of a show.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. Ben Mendelsohn is really, really a tremendous actor. He was in the Star Wars Rogue One movie. He played in that one. He played that Orson Krennic, basically the big baddie in that wasn't.
He helped create the Death Star.
Yeah, basically.
He oversaw the construction of it.
Yeah.
He was freaking amazing in the show Bloodline.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was some of the best acting I've ever seen.
That was a pretty good show. I remember you actually sent me a thing on that. You're like, "Hey, you guys should watch this."
Yeah.
And we did end up watching. It was really good. So.
Yeah, so good. Anyway, so Ben Mendelsohn, Emilia Clarke, Olivia Colman, and Sam Jackson.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of hope Emilia Clarke plays a bad guy. Like, I would think it would be kind of cool if because she's her character arc in Game of Thrones. You know, she goes from kind of this innocent girl to being this hero ruler. You know, and then to like a whole different place. You know, she went into a really
for better or worse.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, yeah, I kind of hope she's a bad guy in this.
Yeah,
like, I'm hoping.
I can't wait. I mean, she could be playing the Skrull Queen, which also could be Olivia Colman. So he's an evil bitch.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
Okay.
So, it's interesting too because in Captain Marvel, Skrulls were set up as the good guys.
Right.
But they quickly came out and said, not all Skrulls are good.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. You know, it'll be interesting to see just how they shift that perspective. But also, Captain Marvel 1, Captain Marvel 1 took place in the mid-90s.
Yes.
So Skrulls have been coming here since the mid-90s.
Right. So they've been amassing.
That right there sets up for a big who do you trust?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, 2008 Iron Man came out, and that was the first big hero of the world, even though, you know, obviously there was retconning done after that where Cap was in the 40s and Captain Marvel in the 90s and all this, and Ant-Man or the original Ant-Man throughout times. So there was more than just it wasn't Tony Stark as the first hero, but it sets up for anybody could be a Skrull from the beginning of the MCU basically.
Right. Now, and does that play into like the Invasion of the Body Snatchers type stuff where if you're replaced you're not put in cryogenic storage or anything?
You're not allowed to say that name around my wife.
Okay.
Hannah had nightmares for a lifetime.
For Invasion of the Body Snatchers?
I've heard this story a million times. Anytime it comes up, it's like, I had nightmares about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I crawled from the counter to the toilet as a kid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
She's probably going to kill me for saying that. But anyway, don't say that.
We'll have to bleep this out.
Yeah, we'll cut it out. Okay, sorry.
Yep.
Anyway, it sets up for a really good mystery. Who do you trust?
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's going to be great. I when I saw the casting stuff and I started reading more about what this series is going to be about, I couldn't wait to talk to you about it because I really have no idea where this goes. And is there a comic book series, Secret Invasion?
Yeah. So that's what I was talking about earlier. It's top 10 for me. It sets up an incredible storyline. The Illuminati in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who's comprised of Iron Man, Professor X, Doctor Strange, T'Challa, Black Panther, Namor, and one more. Black Bolt. That's the Illuminati in comics.
Okay.
We don't know who the Illuminati is in the MCU now.
Right.
But it would be a really cool opportunity for them to maybe introduce it.
Okay.
Mr. Fantastic. Did I say Mr. Fantastic? So Reed Richards, Professor X,
Yep.
Doctor Strange, all the smartest people in the universe.
Right.
But yeah, very excited for it.
Cool.
I don't think we have it's supposed to release.
I thought I said January. I remember seeing something around January 2022. I think is what
I was going to say. I couldn't remember if it's 2022 or 2023, but yeah,
Yep.
January 2022. So
Yeah,
very, very excited.
Yeah, they're already in I think they're already in production, or at least pre-production for it.
Definitely
is
pre-production.
what I've seen. So yeah, I think the target is sometime January 2022. So we'll see. That may slip, but I think that's where they're targeting.
And it could always move.
Yep.
Knowing how project shipped. Okay.
Well, yeah, especially still with dealing with COVID fallout and stuff. So.
All right, so excited for it. You're
very.
excited for it.
Yep.
We'll continue to update you as it gets closer and cover it as it premieres.
Yep.
Next bit on the rundown. We have some production updates for certain movies. Number one, the Hawkeye TV show coming out later this year has wrapped production and now is in post-production.
Yeah.
That's starring Jeremy Renner.
Yes.
And Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah.
She's going to be like the new Hawkeye. She's not playing his daughter. This is a big misconception.
Sure.
She's playing Kate Bishop, who's a pupil of Hawkeye's.
Okay.
Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness has wrapped. Here's one crazy thing about Doctor Strange 2. We haven't seen set photos. We haven't seen anything.
Been pretty tight
movie.
about it.
They have been on
operational security is pretty high there. So
I know. I was going to say they've been on tight, but that doesn't even make sense. But they've been real tight about the production. We haven't seen anything about it. We've mentioned a bit about it on this show and the tie-in from WandaVision and Spider-Man 3 No Way Home.
Right.
It's directed by Sam Raimi, obviously bringing back Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
I said obviously, but
you did.
That's pretty obvious.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then the Flash movie started production.
Okay.
Big thing about
That's
that.
Ezra Miller
returning from the Snyderverse.
Yep.
Big thing about that is it did actually confirm Michael Keaton's Batman's coming back.
Oh, man.
As a mentor role to the Flash. And it's going to adapt the Flashpoint series.
Okay.
Comic series.
Okay.
Which was it's probably now the most famous Flash series, but what's really big about that series is Barry Allen travels back in time to try to prevent his mother's murder, and he creates a bunch of branch realities because he goes back in time, and going back in time is iffy at best, and he eventually fixes it. And when he does fix it, it creates the new 52, the new DC 52, which was the big reboot of the DC comic universe.
Okay.
And so I think that was a pretty important piece in the DC comic history.
Yeah.
It was called the new 52 because they focused in on 52 DC characters. And so it was pretty big.
Yeah.
So that's starting, and they're adapting that movie, bringing back Michael Keaton's Batman. Is holy cow! I cannot wait for that.
Right.
And it could possibly bring back. What's Negan's name?
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne as Batman.
Oh,
so in that Flashpoint series, it's an alternate reality,
right?
And Thomas Wayne actually became Batman, and he's like a much darker Batman.
Okay.
Which is funny
really?
to say.
There's a darker Batman?
No, but he's like a murderer.
Okay.
So he's almost anti-hero-ish.
Okay. Which reminds me, did you see the news this week from Zack Schneider was talking about alternative titles to the Justice League movie that he did?
Yes.
And that
I think it's funny you just said Zack Schneider.
Schneider. Is that his name, Zack Schneider?
It's just Snyder.
Snyder.
I'm not even correcting you because I
Yeah.
want to, be correct about Zack Snyder.
Yes.
I could give two jingles about him, but it's
Snyder.
Schneider. He's on the
I just
side.
remember Schneider from what was that? One Day at a Time. That's the only Schneider I remember.
And what was do you remember what they were called?
So it was going to be
It was terrible.
I was like, gosh.
It was even BVS.
So
alternate title for that.
in history, you have there's a classic versus, you have the yin versus yang. You have black versus white. You have Kramer versus Kramer, and then you have Batman
the divorce
versus
movie?
Yeah, exactly. You have Batman versus Superman. So it's this timeless yin yang wrestling match. So they did Batman versus Superman. I just think is the dumbest. I just miserable. I just despise the name of the movie and everything. But that's actually the better title because Schneider. So the title I think was supposed to be Night of Night, or it was supposed to be Son of Sun and Night of Night.
Yeah, that's what it was. Is this a joke?
Yeah, is what they were gonna do, and I was like, "Come on, you've got to be kidding me! This is the dumbest."
We're spending way too much time on Zack Snyder.
So I mean, thinking to myself, okay, if this is Justice League was Batman vs Superman, Justice League was the better title. Like that's the one that won out because the other one was so crappy.
Or Dawn of Justice.
Yeah. So yeah.
Either way,
we need to get to something that was spectacular. Let
me wrap that up real quick
Okay.
on that. So Doctor Strange 2 and the Multiverse of Madness comes out in March of next year.
Okay.
Hawkeye later this year. I don't know the exact release date. We'll keep you up to date as it comes along. Again, Flash started production, so excited about that. It's going to bring back some really great characters.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the rundown. You want to get to fan questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Our first fan question comes from a veteran, guy I served with. He's part of the Moretti family for life. Pete Gardner. His name is Jason, but we call him Pete.
Okay.
With Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out, the idea of redos instead of reboots is now a thing. What movies or even single seasons of TV series would you like to see redone to make them better? I know right off the bat what my answer is, but what do you think?
Well, I think if we were going to redo any series or any of them, I think lately, I would like to see, if you're going to redo something or I honestly think the Green Lantern, like I would like to see.
They are redoing it. They're rebooting it.
Okay, so I would like to see.
Into a TV show.
Okay.
For HBO
I'd like to see that because the Green Lantern has always been
one of my top DC favorites.
It's one of the best, and they really cocked it up with Ryan Reynolds, and so I definitely would like to see the Green Lantern done a little bit more.
So would Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you wanted to go to TV shows, going back to our Heroes discussion, maybe season 2, we just go back and redo season 2 and kind of go from there.
Start from where it should have gone.
Right.
I like that. I'm absolutely Heroes kind of popped in my head almost immediately.
Yep.
The first thing that always will pop into my head is season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Okay.
If we can go back and redo season 8 of Game of Thrones, tell me how to make that happen. I will do whatever you want me to.
Right.
So there's
you
that.
have to take the serum.
And for me, the X-Men movies.
Okay.
Of course, we talked about X-Men last week and somewhat of what their plans are. I can't wait to see what president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige's plan is for the mutants in the MCU and how he's going to really make this happen. So it's not a redo. It is kind of a redo because the Foxman movies are not canon. They're not going to happen. They're not going to bring those characters into the MCU.
Right.
And so they're redoing the X-Men.
Okay.
And it could be down the road. Who knows? But I want to see the X-Men redone properly and have Cyclops given his due.
Yeah. Well, I think I think that'll be pretty good because I think we look at the X-Men movies and stuff, and you think to yourself, okay, they got progressively worse as time went on, and and that's with a great cast. I mean,
Yeah.
with Patrick Stewart
They
as
did.
Professor
First
X.
Class was good. I liked First Class.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the First Class
I'm talking
from the
about
comics.
I'm talking about the X-Men, the original X-Men trilogy. They
Well,
got worse, and then you had the
so X1 and X2 are good.
Yeah.
They don't hold up. If you watch them now, they just don't hold up. I don't think they're as good as we thought they were.
Right.
X-Men 3: The Last Stand was one of the worst movies of all time.
Absolutely.
I never walked out of a movie more pissed until Star Wars Episode 8: Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And then they kind of rebooted it with First Class,
Right.
and then Singer inserted himself, no pun intended, on that gross asshole, but he reinserted himself into the Foxman universe, and Days of Future Past is a very highly rated movie. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's anticlimactic. It doesn't make a lot of sense bringing in both casts. X-Men Apocalypse is terrible. That's all.
Yep.
And then haven't even seen Dark Phoenix because it's going to be
I didn't.
trash. So.
Again, like I said, the first X-Men movie I thought was good. 2 was okay, and 3rd was terrible. And then they redid. We go back to the redo. They kind of redid it. They didn't. They rebooted it, I guess. And I thought First Class was really good too. I liked it, And then we go into this progressive slide down again, where it's and then you end up with Dark Phoenix, which again same thing with me. I haven't watched it.
Never
had
will.
No desire to watch it.
Never will.
Yeah. So
great
question, Peach.
Great question, Pete. I definitely want to hear what you think would be a good redo. Other fans, if you have any ideas of something to be redone, let us know. The next question comes from a special guest of the show. He's not a guest, I guess. I shouldn't say that. Special hero to the show. The man who did the artwork for our logo. Fantastic logo for the Nerd Rundown.
Yeah, it was really great.
Mr. Manny Romero, who will be coming on the show at some point when we are ready to have a third person take over our airwaves.
Right.
He asks, what type of effect does social media have on modern movie and series releases? He says, well, it's a great forum for nerds to come together. Does all the fan speculation and theories overinflate expectations? Something that you and I talked about last night. We were going to talk about it in the Captain America review.
Right.
I think it's good that we didn't, because it's
actually really good. It's a good segue.
Tie into this question. So what? This WandaVision. Created so many fan theories.
Right.
Mephisto this, Mephisto that, and it didn't come true. Also, this is how they're bringing in the X-Men universe from the Foxman universe.
Right.
Didn't happen. So I can't even keep track of all the theories that came out of that show from the week-to-week release of it.
Yep.
And then the season finale happened, and none of those theories really came true. Who was Ralph? He was just a boner joke in the end. It was just it was a letdown for those people that were putting themselves into this high amount of speculation, and when it didn't come true, they were mad about it. Now, me, I got into it real hardcore with the theories and was like, oh, this flower is purple, and Harkness's power is purple, whatever, blah, 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 blah. You could go down so many roads. But when they didn't come true, I wasn't mad about it, because I was able to appreciate the show for what it is, and that's what it should be.
Right.
Appreciate the show for what it is. Don't get mad that it didn't world build better than you thought it would.
Right.
And didn't bring in Mephisto or whatever.
Right.
So social media is a stain on life as it is.
Yeah.
It's not just the nerd world that we live in.
Right.
Social media is. I wish we could snap our fingers Thanos style and say bye-bye social media.
Yeah, it really is. It really is destructive. I really think. I think there. Like anything, it's a tool, and but I think it's a tool that's abused and poorly done. Going back to what you're saying, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I think people. And I've seen this happen for a long time, and it's frustrating. It kind of boils my blood, if you will. But you watch people like
grinds your gears.
Yeah, it really grinds my gears. But you have these you have these guys who come along, guys and gals who are really great storytellers. And I use the example of M. Night Shyamalan because he's not. A lot of people kind of roll their eyes. They're like, oh, it's the same thing over and over again. And it's like, well, maybe, but if you let M. Night Shyamalan tell you a story, sit down and don't think about the trailer, don't think about what the twist is going to be at the end, and just let him tell you a story. You're most likely going to enjoy that story, and you may see the twist coming, you may see the plot thing or whatever, but you know that when you sit down and watch one of his movies, it's going to be original. It's not going to be some reboot from the 70s where I'm watching the reboot of Chips. This is the fourth time that we've rebooted the series Chips, and it's like it's going to be the same nonsense over and over again. So, it's okay. We're rebooting this. We're rebooting that. We're redoing this. We're redoing that. Yeah. M. Night Shyamalan is going to tell you an original story that you've never heard. And it may suck. It may be the worst piece of crap you've ever seen in your life, but it's at least original story, and you can sit down. And Christopher Nolan, I feel,
or it could be Unbreakable, and it just blows your mind.
Right, exactly. Where he taps into that comic book thing, or maybe where Samuel Jackson talks about, hey, maybe comic books are legends of the old, and they're based on actual real people that had these abilities,
Yeah.
And
that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's like, okay, there are extraordinary people, and here you have somebody on the spectrum who's completely fragile, that really breaks bones if you sneeze on him. If that guy lives on one end of the spectrum, is there another guy on the other end of the spectrum that is unbreakable? And what, in order to find his place, he does unspeakable things to find out who David Dutton is, who Bruce Willis is, or David Dunn. I think his last name is Dunn in that one. But anyhow, Christopher Nolan, same thing.
I've also known some sick call rangers that if you sneeze on them, they are on sick call.
Right. So sure. But I think going back to, like I said, Christopher Nolan, if he's going to tell you an original story, and he's going to give you something that you've never seen before, and it may be something that's beyond. It's convoluted, I mean,
maybe
you look
like, what the hell did I just watch? But it also might be Inception, where you're just blown away.
Yeah, absolutely. You watch like Interstellar is one of my favorite movies, but it's a challenge for a lot of people because there's a lot of really deep physics that goes on into it. Kind of going back to it, let them tell you a story. Yeah. That's at the end of the day. Let them tell you a story. Let the
it's
creators.
Fun to theorize.
Yes.
You can do that.
Right.
Manage your expectations.
But manage your expectations and let them tell you a story, because most of the time you're going to enjoy it. Like, I have different expectation levels for different things. I know I bag on them quite a bit, but like the Fast and Furious movies, like it's a mindless.
No expectations.
Yeah, I have zero expectations for that movie. It's going to be fun. I like The Rock. I like most of the actors that are in it. I think they're fun to watch and stuff, and it's just like, okay, well, I like cool cars, except for the 4-cylinder turbo bangers or whatever it is. But I mean, as long as you get a V8 in it, I'm happy. But it just is what it is. But let them tell you a story, and don't blow your expectations out and get upset when your expectation doesn't match what the creators actually intended, because you're the one who's actually the problem, not them. They've probably put together, I mean, with the exception of Rian Johnson and anything Star Wars, that's come out in the last few years.
Don't say that name around here.
Yeah. I saw the other day he wanted to.
Okay, no, we're not talking about him.
All right,
not doing it. Okay. No Rian Johnson talking.
Rian Johnson. Okay.
So great question, Manny. Very topical question. Love this question so much, and it's even you and I were talking about last night.
Right.
I mean, it's
absolutely,
and without even looking at the question.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was coming. Yep.
So, because we were, and it came up with the week-to-week talk.
Yep.
Should shows be released like they are on Netflix all at once, or is the week-to-week release a better way of releasing these shows? The week-to-week release, like what Disney Plus has done with Mandalorian, WandaVision, and Falcon and Winter Soldier, it creates great discourse throughout the week.
Right.
And great theory crafting from us nerds. But is it making it so that the show doesn't live up to expectations that people are setting for themselves?
Right.
So it's a great conversation, maybe one we will continue to have, especially as Netflix will release their seasons all at once, and we'll watch that and consume it all at once. And
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they'll change.
They may or may not change. Amazon's released The Boys week to week, and so they're experimenting on different things. And so,
well, when Netflix could drop the binge series on you because they were the only game in town.
Yeah.
Now they're not.
Right.
So now everybody's like, okay, well, if you want to keep
and everybody's creating
great content. So I have a feeling Netflix is probably going to change that.
Yeah.
So if you're a binge watcher, watch out.
Next question.
Yep.
Thanks, Manny. Great question. Keep them coming. Great. Next question comes from number one fan of the show, 1B. I would say, my mom, and then Carrie Erickson, my sister-in-law, for sure. Number 1B fan of the show.
1B,
There's
yep.
no denying it, Carrie. We know you love the show. Stop denying it. She writes in, which comic book do you think has been the most influential? There's two answers to this question. What comic book has been the most influential to me, or to Eric, obviously, and then what comic book has been the most influential in the world, like world influential?
Sure.
Okay, so let me ask you, Eric, first. What do you think has been the most influential comic book?
For me personally.
Yeah, for you personally.
For me personally, I would have to say the Dark Knight series that came out, I think, when I was a teenager. I think of The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, Frank Miller.
That would probably for me is the most iconic, simply because when I read it for the first time, I had been a Batman fan prior to that, but just in a very distant way. I wasn't really all into it that much. When I read that thing, or when I saw that one at the comic book store, because I actually used to go to the comic book store to buy baseball cards. I didn't really buy comic books. I had a little paper route that I did in the neighborhood, and I made like $3 a week, and I would go blow it on Topps and Donruss and Upper Deck baseball cards. And then I remember seeing The Dark Knight Returns in there, and I ended up buying, because it was a compendium at that point. I think this was like 88 or 89 when I read it, and they had a giant set that they sold. So I ended up buying it that way. So for me personally, The Dark Knight Returns was definitely
nice.
Overall, my opinion of the most influential comic book, I think, is probably Superman.
Yeah, and so that's what I was going to say is Action Comics number 1.
Yep.
1938, Superman. He's got the car holding above his head. There is no doubt that Action Comics number 1, when introducing Superman, is the most influential comic book of all time, and that started Detective Comics with Batman.
Right.
Then later on in 1941, you saw a good old blonde-haired, blue-eyed, skinny guy turned into a super soldier, punch out Adolf Hitler.
Yep.
Those are some of the most influential. 1960s is really when the comics really started to take off. You saw Fantastic Four introduced, Spider-Man introduced, X-Men.
Stan Lee.
Well,
right? Is that
I
when
mean,
Stan joined?
Lee is when he started Marvel Comics, and he started doing all these amazing characters. Started creating all these amazing characters, and it was it was DC and it was Marvel, and it was totally different for Marvel doing what they were doing from what DC was doing. DC was doing these godlike characters like Superman, and
sure,
and Marvel was doing Spider-Man, who couldn't pay his rent.
Yeah.
Really relatable type characters, and then it just just expanded from there. And so you got to give it to Action Comics number 1.
Yep. The Action Comics, with
Jerry
Superman.
Siegel,
Yeah.
and Joel Shuster, the creator of Superman. They get the credit for the comic book
right
genre. So, but me personally, I will never forget, and I mentioned this in episode 1 when Grandpa showed me Avengers number 4, introduction of Captain America into the Avengers. My life had changed from there.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And then getting in, growing up, I was a giant X-Men fan.
Yeah.
In the 90s, X-Men were really Marvel's only characters that were popular.
Yeah.
Well, along with Spider-Man. the Marvel went through a really bad time in the 90s.
Yeah.
Even Captain America had I was like, okay, I give up on this. This guy, they've taken the character way off. He became a werewolf, stuff like that.
Right.
So in the 90s comics and the 90s cartoons, Spider-Man and X-Men were huge.
Yeah.
And that actually, that period is what led Marvel to sell off their movie rights to characters, which then obviously has led to different studios owning different characters, and why we, from the very beginning, did not get a Marvel Cinematic Universe. But
yeah.
So great question, Carrie. I love
Yep.
that question. Thank you for sending that in.
Yep.
You sent it in on YouTube, so appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, Carrie.
Number one fan of the show.
1B.
1B fan of the show. Morgan Santo making his second appearance on the show. Thank you, Morgan, for sending in another great question. We also are not going to be able to get to every question today, so we're banking some for next week. So stay tuned for next week's questions. But Morgan Santo's final question of the show says, will DC ever be able to create a cinematic universe like Marvel? Do you think they will take the resources to invest in something like that? So they've tried. They really tried. The Snyderverse they started with Man of Steel. They thought that was going to birth what they called the DC Extended Universe. So
Right.
there's the MCU and then there's the DCEU. So Man of Steel was a good intro. A lot of people don't like it. I love it.
I thought it was great.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Great action.
It's
It was
a great
different
restart.
take on Superman. I thought Cavill was a great
He was a great choice.
choice.
Yep.
Kevin
Kevin Costner is.
Costner's great. Pa Kent. Russell Crowe's a great.
Yep.
Jor-El.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Shannon is an incredible Zod.
Well, Michael Shannon is just incredible.
He's just incredible. The snapping of the neck. He was like on day one of being Superman.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, on
exactly.
day one of having his strength. But
I don't.
that's the one of the big drawbacks of the movie, or at least big complaints from fans. I don't mind it.
I didn't have a problem with
I
it.
didn't have a problem with
Yeah,
it.
I
It
don't think-
shocked me when it happened.
Right.
But different. It's. I like that when movies pay homage to the comics, and I like it when they make it. Falcon's suit is almost identical to his comic suit. Steve's suit is obviously not. You can't do Captain America's suit in live action. I
Sure.
mean, they showed what it looks like in live action in the first Avenger. But,
Right.
Anyway, where was I? So DC Extended Universe, then BVS came out, Batman vs Superman, and that was Dawn of Justice. So then they were going to in that movie they showed little clips of Lex Luthor. It just went off the rails.
Yep.
And Zack Snyder shouldn't have been the guy to guide the universe. They should have had a Kevin Feige type person
Right.
guide the universe. Jeff Johns was going to be that kind of guy. After Green Lantern, they kind of took his power away.
Yep.
And so it was just one of those. They tried, and they still are somewhat trying. I think that we mentioned the Flash earlier in the show. It is going to be their attempt to reboot the universe
Through the
time vortex of Flashpoint series.
Sure. Yeah.
So, to answer your question, Morgan, they've tried. Sounds like they might try again. They have a good idea of like an Inception type deal of this is where it could start.
Right.
And so we'll see where it goes. But it's hard to trust DC and the decisions that they make.
Yeah.
And here's the problem with DC. They're owned by Warner Brothers. It's not DC Studios.
Right.
Yeah,
So they're beholden to what the executive producers and the president of Warner
that's
Bros.
why we
wants
got
to
the
do.
Snyder cut, because
Right.
they came in and they chopped up the original version of Justice League, and they can do that because they own they're Warner Brothers and they own DC.
Right.
Marvel Studios started out as Marvel Studios. They were eventually bought out by Disney, but they're so good at what they do, and Kevin Feige is so good at what he does. Disney lets them do their thing.
Yeah.
They don't come in and they don't chop up the movie. Now you mentioned this last week, and it was a great point, and listening to the podcast again, I was like, oh man, I wish I could have expanded on that. But you pointed out that Feige does say, here's the box you work within.
Right.
Go work within that box. But he doesn't say this needs to be that.
Right.
This needs to be that.
Right.
So they have had problems with directors who want to, I mean, they, for one, Patty Jenkins, who directed the Wonder Woman movie, she was originally attached to Thor 2, The Dark World. Jon Favreau did not direct Iron Man 3.
Yeah, Shane Black did that one, right?
Shane Black did that one.
Mm-hmm.
Edgar Wright was attached to Ant-Man for the longest time. Right before production started, they parted ways. And it's because they want to they want to try to get outside that box, but Marvel has a formula.
Right.
They have a box, and if you try to get outside that formula, Feige's like, I don't think so, dude.
Right.
Bye. We'll get somebody else. For better or worse, it's worked for them.
Well, and this is a struggle that I think people have, not just in the movie industry, but understanding the difference between a strategic move, a strategery, having some sort of strategery versus a tactical move. So an individual movie will have a strategic vision overall over that 2 hour, hour and a half period that you have. But then there's tactical things that you do inside the individual scenes that allow you to progress things along. But Kevin Feige understands that he's looking at a 10, 15, 25, 30, 35 picture strategic vision of where he wants things to go from one place to another place. And so because of that, he may not have the time to explain to the director, or want to explain to the director, look, man, I don't want you doing that because I need you to be in this box here because I've got somebody else lined up to tell a story, and you're going to screw it up if you put what you're doing into this. So I need you in this box. Yep. You have a lot of creativity in this box, but this is the specific formula that we need to go with. I think the other problem that DC runs into is they were in full-on panic mode to catch up with the MCU.
Yeah.
And before they realized they were even behind, Iron Man had come out. Because you're looking at what the Dark Knight Rises 2012, something like that.
Same year as Avengers.
Right. Okay. So coming out of, and Christian Bale goes, I'm done with Batman.
Yep.
So so now you've got to reboot a Batman. You got to bring a whole new Batman into this situation because Batman's your main guy at the Justice League. But you're like, okay, well, let's go with Superman and we'll figure out the Batman later. So instead of then reintroducing a new Batman character, you bring in Ben Affleck and you put him, you don't have any patience.
Yeah.
You don't take your time.
You make him fight Superman.
You make him find Superman right off the bat.
And then they kill Superman at the end of that.
And which is asinine. Like it's absolutely asinine. So they were dumb and they were impatient. They were really impatient, is what it comes down to. So if DC can take a breath, if Warner Brothers can take a breath and say, okay, how do we strategically do this? Let's think 15 pictures out.
Yeah.
Because we do have an opportunity here. And so and that's what I'm hoping. Like, okay, we bring in the Green Lantern. We bring in, the Flash. We bring in Cyborg. Because there's some good elements. That Cyborg, I'm telling you, man, you cut out the junk that's in Justice League and you give Cyborg his own kickoff. I'm down. I'm down with that.
The 2017 cut, I was like, Cyborg, not a good character.
No.
This Snyderverse character, so much.
Yeah, Joss Whedon did him dirty.
Oh my
did
gosh.
him seriously.
No wonder
dirty.
he's so mad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't blame him. So yeah.
The whole killing of Superman in their second movie.
Yeah.
And then in the same movie bringing him back,
right.
And then pretending like he's not going to be part of the Justice League.
Right.
I get it. Like him coming back makes them irrelevant.
Right.
Like, and it's shown in that movie, in the Snyder cut. When he comes back, I mean, it's game over for Steppenwolf and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
I don't care. Make it work.
Right.
Find a way. Figure it out.
You've got plenty.
Don't remove your second best character from the movies just because you can't figure out how to make the other characters better.
Right. Plenty of material to work with.
Yeah.
The other bit is, the great part about Marvel is there's so much humor in Marvel.
Yeah.
And there is almost the Batman, Superman
Some people would say
stuff,
too much humor.
There's and
I think
that may
it's
be
a good amount.
I think it's a good amount.
Yeah.
There's zero levity in any of those. It's just like it's relentless. It's absolutely dark. It's a relentless, miserable experience to watch these movies because there's very little humor. I think the only Justice League scene that I can think of that was funny was just the slow motion Flash scenes. Where he does stuff. That's just like
more funny because he looks so weird when he runs.
Right. Yeah.
But the 2017 Joss Whedon cut of Justice League put in humor, and it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Snyderverse cut didn't have enough in it,
right.
And it's just like
it's the pendulum that swings different.
So, but that's the genius of Marvel is they found that.
They have a nice balance. They have a really nice balance. So Morgan, great question. I think coming back at the end of the day, I would say if DC can take a breath and really strategically lay out a game plan for themselves for a 10, 15 picture deal, then you're good.
And have the patience.
Yeah, and have the patience to execute on that plan. I think you have basic characters that people love. People love Superman. And that Man of Steel movie was a good movie. It was a good piece to work off. Patty Jenkins' initial Wonder Woman movie was a great movie. And I didn't have a problem with Ben Affleck as Batman.
I liked him.
I think
he's one of my favorites.
I think he was a fantastic Bruce Wayne, which I think is the overlooked part of every Batman movie is you have to be a believable Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And he's a believable Bruce Wayne. Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne was good. I thought really obviously Michael Keaton, is really great. But I've said that before. But so you've got great elements that you could put these pieces together.
Yeah.
And
I even like Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne.
Oh God, please don't.
I do. I actually I like Val Kilmer as Batman too.
Yeah. Well, I love Val Kilmer.
How can you not like Val Kilmer?
Right.
It's when you get into Batman, Robin is
right.
Like, whoa, is this? Anyway, it's great questions.
Yeah.
Keep them coming, people.
Yep.
I'd love to answer a billion of these, but we got to cut it short and get out of here and get on with our lives.
Yeah.
You too, people. Okay, get on with your lives. Go out, enjoy the sun. I think it's starting to warm up. With that being said, thank you for your time today, Eric. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you, brother.
And I'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.